Today we're going to make beef stew, and so here's the ingredients that we have. I already gave you the ingredient list. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my chunks of beef stew, my 1-inch cubes, and put it into a bowl. And I'm going to liberally, as always, season it with some kosher salt and fresh ground black pepper. So a little bit of salt, a little more salt, a good bit of black pepper. And then toss all that together. And there we go. We're going to take that to the stove. And here I have my pan. I'm going to put my oil in the pan, just enough to coat the bottom of the pan. The pan should be hot already. And I'm going to take half of my beef at a time and place it into the bottom of the pan. The pan needs to be pretty hot, medium-high heat, because what I'm looking to do is brown or sear the outside of this beef stew meat. So the beef stew meat needs to come from a place that, like the chuck, and that's what I have here is beef chuck meat that is trimmed, but it's still the 1-inch cubes of beef chuck. So I'm going to let that sit and brown. And then once it's brown, I'm going to take and flip over the pieces so that I have each piece of beef that is evenly browned within reason. Now this is something maybe that if you're going to make large quantities, you're probably not going to turn every piece of beef. But because I'm making such a small piece, I did. Or small batch I did. So I'm going to transfer that beef out. I'm going to check and make sure that my pan is not scorched or burnt. If it is, then I need to start back over. And then I'm going to put some more oil in the pan and start with the second round of searing of the beef. Once the beef is seared, I've pulled all of the beef out of the pan. I need to readjust and just make sure that everything is okay. That bit of fond on the bottom of the pan is good. I'm going to need to add a little more oil to the pan. And then I'm going to add my small diced onions, all of them. Get them all out of there. Oh, look at those beautiful small diced onions. So there's my, I like bundt cakes spatula. I'm going to brown or caramelize the onions. And so what I've done is once the beef is out of the pan, I've turned the heat down to a medium-low heat, and I'm going to cook them until they're really brown, but not burnt. So now I have my onions are brown. I'm going to add my minced garlic, and I'm going to cook that to aroma. Approximately 1 minute or so, depending on the level of your heat. Make sure you don't scorch the garlic. Yeah, you can smell it. You're cooking it to aroma. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add the tomato paste to it. And I want to cook out the tomato paste or pinsage the tomato paste. So cook, 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 stir, stir, stir. There's my my bundt spatula. So I've cooked out the tomato paste. I make sure that we don't scorch anything to the bottom of the pan. I'm going to add my flour. And my flour, I'm going to continue to cook in the same pan for about 1 minute. And this is a point where you really need to be stirring often so you don't scorch the flour to the bottom of the pan. Next, I'm going to add my dried thyme directly to the mixture. I know it says to make a sachet, but I took the dried thyme and put it right in with the tomato paste and also the bay leaf. You could tie it all up in a sachet though. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my red wine. Nothing but the best, the box red wine. It is actually a pretty decent red wine for coming out of a box. Now what I want to do with that red wine is I want to cook it down au sec or until almost dry. Now my wine and tomato paste, onion and garlic mixture has cooked down. I'm going to return the beef to the mixture, the seared beef. I'm going to add my stock to the pot. For this one, I've mentioned it in other videos. Make sure that you use a low sodium stock if you're buying purchased stock or already made stock out of a box. So the stuff that doesn't say low sodium will be very salty. So that's going to come to a simmer. Then I'm going to add top it with my cartouche. So there it is. My beef stew is simmering. I'm going to take my vented cartouche and set it on top of my beef stew. Be careful, it is hot. I probably should have cut the cartouche maybe a little bit smaller next time. So I'm going to turn that down on low, and I'm going to place it on I'm going to put a lid on top, and then I'm going to place it on the back burner, and I'm going to let it cook until it is fork tender. How long is that? Until it's fork tender. So it's just going to rest for a while, slowly cooking on low heat. So it's been cooking until it's fork tender. I just keep checking it periodically. I would say that took about 90 minutes or so on low heat. But I'm going to take a piece of the beef, put it on a plate, and then with the side of a spoon, obviously that's fork tender. It's very, very easy to cut, but you want to make sure it's not falling apart either. We don't want shreds of beef. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a slotted spoon or a perforated spoon, and I'm going to take the beef out of the cooking liquid. And then I am going to reduce that cooking liquid until it's nappe. It's obviously too thin. It would be kind of brothy if I were to leave the stew as is. Nothing wrong with that necessarily, but you can see it's kind of thin. I want mine to be a little bit thicker. So I'm just going to reduce it down so it's nappe. There you can see it has been reducing for maybe another 10 or 15 minutes. It's nice and nappe consistency. Now I'm going to go ahead and season it. I don't season it before because if I put the salt in there or put any more salt in there beforehand, what happens is it's going to reduce and concentrate. But it does need a little more salt. Imagine that, me putting salt and more salt in there. More black pepper. A little squeeze of lemon, which is not in the recipe actually, but I felt like it did it justice. And then I'm going to take my beef and put it back into the finished sauce. I'm going to bring it all back up to temperature so it's nice and hot. And then look at that shiny deliciousness. Just want to hop through the video and just start eating the stew. And there it is, finished beef stew. Now I'm going to take it and eat it.